This is a 1963 Volkswagen Beetle, modified for autocross racing and converted into a Herbie replica.
Okay, easy. Nope, come on. There you go. That's fourth. That's fourth. Little, come on. Second. There we go. All right, let's stay in it. Stay in it, you'll feel the power drop off. There's third.
Oh, I feel like I could pass this.
Go for it. Do it. Do you need the speed for the hill?
Passing.
Stay in it.
Stay in it. Come on. Come on. Yeah.
Well, we have the momentum. Grab fourth.
This classic car is engine swapped, has a half cage, a custom-made front suspension with caster adjustment, disc brakes, and the secret weapon, fuel injection. We've already reviewed a classic Beetle owned by Justin Kramer, but that was a Super Beetle, a mid-century refresh that grew in size and set out to address some of the livability issues of the original non-Super Beetle, which is what this is. This is a Type 1, and it's savage to drive. You remember Veronica, she had the Buick with the functional CRT, and she also did the fuel injection for Crazy Taxi. So she and I are wearing aircraft comms just to talk to each other within the car. Because everything inside this Type 1 is... It doesn't sound like a car inside here. It sounds like 4 leaf blowers. And the sound comes from everywhere. Each gear change has a different personality. First gear is up and diagonal to the left, but not too far, because reverse gear is right next to first gear, and maybe there's a lockout. And when I say reverse is right next to first, I mean that the shifter gates are touching. Maybe there's a detent between first and R, but I've nudged through it a bunch and hit the dog teeth. And then...
Oop, there's reverse. No, wiggle second. No,
A little further. A little bit there.
try to find first. Oh, that's reverse again. Try to find first. And then I find third, and the engine is clunk, 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 and it protests. So, come on, where's first? There's reverse again. Oh, and then going from second to third isn't as simple as going from first to third. Second to third has a loop-de-loop. I'm not joking. Move the shifter from second gear, and then you have to do a little woo on the way to find third. Fourth is the only neurotypical gear change in a Type 1, just straight back. And steering. Okay. This steering is sharp and direct and not normal, because Veronica built her own suspension, and here's how she did it.
Under here, basically the only thing that is original to this car at this point is there's not much original left as far as the front end goes. This is the stock torsion tubes. However, what we did is spaced it out at the bottom of the, what is the technical term for it?
It looks like a sway bar to me.
Bulkhead.
Oh.
So we spaced it out at the bottom of the bulkhead here. And what that does is it gives you more caster in the front end. But when you do that, because the way the trailing arms are set up, it's going to add more height to the front. So what me and Kit did was we cut the centers out and added these adjusters in. I welded these so you have ride height adjustment up front to get you back to stock ride after doing all that. And all of that means he is slightly more stable up at speed. Like highway speeds. Not by much. You saw me bouncing around behind you, but it's better. We got disc brakes up front. That was done by the previous owner. I believe it is a CB Performance kit. The uprights there, the spindle and the knuckle, the kingpin setup, is from EMPI. That's just like a forged set because the old ones were super, super worn and awful. The trailing arms here, they ride on bearings in here. And it was so worn, the original ones that came out of there, they had divots, which is insane because they don't, they only rotate like that much. So it's riding the same spot over and over and over again. But to wear deep into those, I've sent it to many of my Volkswagen friends and they were like, oh my God, I've never seen a set so bad. I can send you a picture we can insert.
Okay.
If you really want to, I can dig for it.
It's the spindles and the tube are the only original parts.
And the sway bar. We got Herbie mic'd up.
Yeah.
What will he say?
I'm gay. So, let's talk about Herbie the Love Bug. The Herbie movies are bad. They're bad in the same way the Fast and the Furious movies are bad. You're not meant to think too much about. I'm like, okay. While you could say, I don't think Herbie is the most best known movie Hollywood car, I'd argue that the Time Machine DeLorean is number one, and then the Ecto one from Ghostbusters is number two. Herbie maybe number three, maybe Knight Rider's above that, even though Knight Rider is the same concept of a car that's alive. But Herbie is still one of the more memorable movie cars made. And much like the actual Beetle itself, I'm not sure it had anything to do with the car being good or not. Although you could say the Beetle had far more novelty appeal 50 or 60 years ago than it does now. Because now in 2024, we've come so far technologically that we don't even have the capacity to be impressed by our own achievements anymore. Oh, what? The car's driving itself. Great. My Kia does that. Herbie the Love Bug, the movie, is pretty much Knight Industries 2000s before there even was a Knight Rider. It's KITT. Like fine chopping cauliflower and pretending it's rice to get your kids some nutrients. The movie, the first one, The Love Bug, was a soft introduction to car culture for a lot of people during 1969 and the early 70s, despite overly not being about car culture, because Herbie was a Trojan horse for a broader acceptance of atypical cars. Foreign-built cars were catching on in the late 60s, but Herbie arguably helped that along in a faster clip while wrapping the delivery in a sugary package of a screwball comedy, which is a genre of movie we don't really have anymore. A movie that's just plain silly from beginning to end. I mean, you could argue that Adam Sandler's movies were like that, although he's getting up there in age, hasn't really made movies like that anymore. Bridesmaids was a good screwball comedy. The Hangover, but these aren't recent movies. Movies that you're just supposed to just lay back and let the comedy hit you. In 1969, it was the type of perfectly pitched story that Disney seems too cynical to even pull off now, particularly because there was an earnestness to the making of The Love Bug and a notion that the people making it cared, or at least cared more than you'd think a movie like The Love Bug would demand. If you hadn't seen any of the Herbie movies, I don't blame you. They were last century, with the exception of the Lindsay Lohan one, and none of them were good. The acting is really wooden. It's the acting in the Herbie movies are very much old style acting. There is no method acting. I don't believe any of these characters are these characters. They're the type of old Rock Hudson, oh, you come up here to your mark, you hit your mark, which means hitting a little mark they put on the floor, right? Or a little piece of tape that you can't see on camera. You walk here, you stand here, and you deliver your line. I say my line. You say your line. Ba 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 ba. Ba ba ba. And the comedy in the movie is just what's his fat face? Just moving make eye talk in a silly voice. And that's comedy f***ing gold. Anyway, an actor named Dean Jones was looking for his next movie role in the early 1960s and hoped that Walt Disney would produce a script he'd shown him about the first sports car to come to the United States. Walt Disney was all, yeah, whatever, that's fine. How about this? And it was a script based on a story called Boy, Girl, Car. Now, Walt Disney didn't live to see it get made since he died in 1966, 3 years before the first Herbie movie released. Although, if you believe the urban legend about him being cryogenically frozen, then clearly he's going to outlive all of us, but only on a technicality, like Old Man Arasaka. If nothing else, the company bearing his name is going to last until the heat death of the universe and probably become its own government, complete with a military wing and special forces, like Arasaka. By the 22nd century, Disney is going to be indistinguishable from Shinra Electric Power Company or Militech. Know what I mean, Choom? But now that Walt was gone, they decided to make Boy, Girl, Car, but they needed to find the right car or this entire thing would fall apart. And what's weird is that despite the premise of a race car driver discovering a car that had supernaturally boosted power and independent thinking, and then taking it racing in Monaco, they weren't actually looking for something cool. They were looking for something cute. Because again, Disney. It had to be a car you could attribute some kind of personality to just by looking at it. Something that looked like an underdog, but could also believably be this big hero in the end. And also, they were making movies for cheap back then. So it's not like you would get a, I don't know, Sunbeam Tiger, right? So they held some kind of casting call they'd hold for a regular person, but they were just looking at cars. I can't find a confirmed list of the specific cars that were considered, but rumors suggest they were going to go for an MG, a TVR, like that's cheap. Anyway, a couple of early Toyotas and Volvos were in the lineup, but those cars hardly merited a reaction from the crew. But the Beetle? Legend has it the crew could hardly walk past the Beetle without petting it. They're like, oh yeah, this. Now, bear in mind, the movie came out in 69, so this was at least 68 and earlier. The so-called Summer of Love was early mid-60s, or Summers of Love. So the Beetle already existed in American pop culture, but for the sake of brevity, it was a dirty hippie car, or literally a car for the poor, or also a German, like a foreign car, right? This is the late 60s. The Falcon, which used to be the cheapest car in America, had already become a large sedan by that point. Galaxies were bigger than ever, and this is the late 60s when the muscle car scene in the United States was at its peak. 69 Chevelles and stuff like that. The big blocks were around. That was what car culture was. It wasn't tiny stuff. So anyway, the filmmakers knew they found their car. But what's funny is that if you watch the movie, the first one, The Love Bug, except for maybe one or two brief instances, you never see a Volkswagen badge anywhere on Herbie, because Volkswagen didn't allow Disney to use their name, which is a blunder almost as big as M&M telling the producers of E.T. to go find some other candy for their little alien to be obsessed with. Once sales of the Beetle cratered, they let Disney use the name for sequels, but before then, he was either called Herbie or he was just called The Bug. It was a clever way to get around Volkswagen's wet blanketing because they didn't own a trademark on the nickname Bug, so Disney could use it as much as they wanted. But the trade-off for being allowed to use the Beetle at all was that Volkswagen would get approval on how the car was depicted, which meant Volkswagen's legal team was parked outside the studio like a stoner camping for Ween tickets. Remember Ween? I remember Ween.
Ocean man, grab me by the balls and inflate them with the saline, ocean man.
That's how the song goes. The legal team was out there because Volkswagen didn't like the scenes when Herbie is shown breaking down or having troubles. And I get it. They're just trying to protect their own. That's kind of the premise of the movie. Anyway, legend has it that some of the Beetles used in the film, they couldn't run the Type 1 engines. They put Porsche engines in them. So they could do the things that Herbie's supposed to do, like, accelerate. For reference, the engine that's in here, the engine that's in Veronica's Herbie, is the final iteration of the Volkswagen Super Beetle engine. This one came from the Mexican Beetle, because even though the Beetles were discontinued, I believe in 79, Nick has some notes in here, Volkswagen of Mexico kept producing the Beetle because everybody liked it, and also they were making money on it. So they continued to refine the engine. So the best canonically true engines you can get for either Type 1 or Super Beetles are the Mexican engines because they have port fuel injection. Not even throttle body. These things have port fuel injection. They run. So, the movie The Love Bug. It released in March 1969, nice. And in the movie business, it typically takes a film making 2.5 times its budget to turn a profit. The Love Bug made somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 times its budget. I can't overestimate how influential Herbie was then in 1969 and throughout the early 1970s, because it helped paint over the unfortunate past of the people's car and the sort of dirty, hippie, poor person image of the Beetle from the early 60s. Of course, what's weird is that the lore ends up tying back to Germany when they decided to make a TV movie in the 90s starring Bruce Campbell, where it's revealed that Herbie is sentient because a German scientist dropped a picture of his wife into the molten metal that was used to build the car. The villain of that movie is an evil mirror version of Herbie named Horace, who was built from a part of the original enchanted metal, who then gets an evil personality from its self-absorbed owner, and I am too sober to read this copy. You want some nightmare fuel? Look up some screenshots of that Bruce Campbell Herbie movie, and you're gonna see Herbie with teeth. It's like Five Nights at Freddy's weird. And also because it's a shitty movie, it also has this aura of analog horror surrounding it. It's like somebody asked David Lynch to make a Disney movie, and then they had John Waters and John Hughes pinch hitting on the reshoots. So, is Herbie the Love Bug the first one? Is it a good movie? I don't know. Is the Beetle a good car? I'm not sure either needs to be. The Beetle is just needed to be economical and have mass production. And the movie just needed a cute car with a likable cast who could say their lines and some stunt driving action. I'm not saying people were simpler back then, but people were simpler back then. We hadn't hit an influx of the auteur-driven films we'd get in the 70s, nor were we at the point where the import boom was popping off in the wake of the oil crisis. Turbocharging, long way off. Yes, I know there was the turbo version of the Corvair. Yes, I hear you, but right. It's not time for that yet. What it was time for was massive civil unrest. So I don't know that you could ever call the 60s a quieter time, especially now that movies are gradually upping the swear word limit and showing nips and dong. But it did feel like it was the time for escapist entertainment. And that's what Herbie the Love Bug is. And that's what driving a Type 1 Beetle is as well, right? It's pure escapism because you have to think all the time. When is the stop coming up? What gear do I need to be in? Do I have time to shift? Or am I riding this gear out? If I change up, am I about to lose speed for this hill that's coming up in 1/8 of a mile? If I downshift, will I be over-revving the engine? An engine like this really needs 6 gears and you only have 4 to work. Oh, another thing. It isn't... The rear suspension, the wheels are directly connected to the axles. Oh, by the way, the wheels are also connected to the brake drums. Great. The wheels in the back are directly connected to the axles in that the wheel itself moves perpendicular to the axles at all times. And it's not like a solid rear axle, which no matter what happens, the wheels stay in line with each other. Not this one. Kind of independent, kind of not. But what happens is when you take a corner and you turn back and you move the weight of the car back to when you have an S-turn, you turn left, you turn right. When you turn right, the wheel that you're going to be transferring power onto is now tucked under the car because the wheel can't stay flat because it's directly connected to the axle, which means Beetles roll over. So you get to think about that. Corners mean something different in a Beetle. Anyway. The Beetle is going to stick around for future generations. There is simply too many of them to disappear. It's not like maybe some of these K cars that are really popular right now. During recording this, I was super lonely, partly because we haven't seen the sun in the week. So I go on Facebook Marketplace. I see a Honda today that I really wanted. But what did I want? I wanted a human connection. I didn't really want another car. I wanted something cute and simple over which I could dole affection in the lack of having a human next to me. But a cute, friend-shaped car can be reinvented over and over again. Hell, they did it in 2005 with Lindsay Lohan. They're talking about doing it again, now, on one of Disney's cable channels. So Herbie speaks to the general vibe of car culture and our tendency to imbue our vehicles with a spirit, to attribute a personality to each of them, and then integrate them into our lives, or into ourselves like a second skin. And that personality rubs off on us in the same way our families and friends do. Jeep people prove this. If the car is great, wonderful. But if the car is awful, well, then it has other qualities. And suddenly you find yourself defending a car like you would a relationship. Because there's no good reason to get into a relationship that doesn't start with, I really care about this person. Every other reason, whether it's how safe or how they make you feel, how much they support you, how cool they are, how hot they are, those are only there to support the initial connection. Every other reason feels transactional in a way. But when it starts with, I care about this, you can figure out the rest. We should all be so lucky.
So Herbie has a Mega Squirt 2 EFI setup from the Dub Shop, along with the relay setup and a wideband there. And all that net results in that Herbie basically has an EFI setup from the 90s.
Tell me about the ow. The
You okay?
roll bar. Ow. The roll bars hurt back here.
Yeah, it's not a pleasant experience. Also, watch my helmet. Don't scratch the visor on me.
Oh, okay. This was the roll bar was done by you?
Previous owner.
Okay.
His reasoning for it was movie accuracy. However, it looks sick as hell, and it looks so real taking it to autocross like this.
Is this roll bar doing anything?
In theory.
Okay.
I'd love to never find out.
Okay. Does it add stiffness?
These are pretty rigid cars, surprisingly.
Oh, okay.
But I'd assume, it's mounted to the pan. Mm-hmm. And then just to like the rear shelf on the body. So maybe some kind of rigidity that's almost immeasurable, but
Okay.
I doubt it. Yeah, I love showing up to autocross with the numbers and everything, and it looks so legit. And then I run like one of the slowest times of the day, but still beat a few stragglers.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it helps you get out.
Yeah. Here, give me the camera.
Yeah.
Do you want to try that again?
Yeah, sure. In the back?
Yeah, because the bars are right there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you bop your head on it.
All right, don't scratch helmet.
Yeah, so imagine you're riding in the back,
Yeah.
and the bar is right up against your head if you're sitting with two people.
All right, yeah, it is. So you can hold on to something and may give you a modicum of safety theater back here. But yeah, like if you're in a crash, you're hitting your head off of this. You don't want to be in the back. Yeah, the people in the back, you'd almost need to wear a helmet just to go down the road.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And this car bounces a lot too, so.
Yeah. In the movie, there was supposed to be like triangles somewhere.
Yeah, so I think it was a welded setup in the movie, so you wouldn't have seen all this hardware. And also, I'm talking about the first movie specifically. It had these like plates for reinforcement on the corners. Mm-hmm. But if you had those getting in or out back here, or even like...
Oh.
or even
Yeah.
like your head near that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so good not having that. It's okay.
Let me see the camera.
Where did I put the mic down?
This is where
Oh, did you?
this is where my legs go. Like right in the back. If you put that seat back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Ow. This is. I'm either up like that or I'm straddling it back like here.
Yeah, it's not a pleasant experience.
No.
It's serviceable if you need to move someone around a little bit, but
Okay, I'm getting out.
it's going to be so graceful.
Grab onto the. Well, if I support myself there, actually, that's not too bad. It's like, oh, yeah. If you like swing like you're in on a playground, then you're good. Oh.
There you go.
Okay. Let's talk about the engine. It's probably boiling hot. 'Cause we're...
Oh, yeah, it's nice and toasty. Be careful. If you like nudge your leg on the exhaust, it will burn real bad.
Okay.
So, back here, this was a 0 mile block. So a new 1600 block with a forged crank. And the whole intake manifold with the fuel injector setup was from, oh shoot, where's that from?
Mexico.
No, who puts the kits together?
Dub shop.
The Dub Shop, right. Fuel injectors, we have no more distributor here.
Fuel injectors, plural.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's port.
Oh, port.
Yeah.
Oh, fancy. Down there. Nice.
Which is great, because if you want to take the motor out, you got to pull the injectors to get it to clear. It's
For it to drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so you have your Volkswagen motor hold the distributor, you know?
Sort of a waste spark setup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had to shave down the airbox
Aw,
because
just a-
this is meant to fit in a Super Beetle, not a 63. And you can see the witness marks here from it rubbing previously.
And later on, you had amber rear turn signals in the Super Beetle, right? And these are
And they were much larger.
Yeah.
We also have the fire tube.
Oh yes, the fire tube that every Beetle owner should have, so your car doesn't ignite.
Oh, the fire extinguisher.
That's this.
Oh, what is that?
It's like a heat activated fire extinguisher.
The
Heat activated fire extinguisher. So you get it up to high enough temp, and that'll burst and hopefully put out the fire.
Oh, it's filled with water.
What is it
No, I
filled
don't
with?
know
It's
it.
like this.
It is a fire extinguisher chemical.
Yes, and they're quite pricey.
You know, they're like $340.
This too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it comes already sealed up like this?
Yes, and you just route it in.
Oh,
And it's free on the ends up here, so it's not quite a loop.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm still trying to undo some of the heinous wiring that's been done to this poor car over the years.
Looks like I did.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. When I had the motor out, mind you, this was 3 days before my first autocross. I was like, I'm gonna pull the motor, do the mounts, so I can do my first autocross in Herbie. I rerouted everything here, and I had Kit help with the yeah, a lot of that. That was a stupid idea to pull it right before autocross, but we got it back together and I ran.
Okay.
It's great.
Volkswagen, how hard can it be to take the engine out?
Yeah, it's supposed to take 20 minutes, right?
Yeah,
I heard it takes 20 minutes to do a Volkswagen motor. It does not. Not this one.
I heard, y'all, this was in the movie with Melissa Etheridge. What'd that guy say?
He goes, so this
Like
was...
this, literally, we're outside the house, and
Yeah.
this guy pulls up with half of his teeth,
And he
says,
rolls up to me and he goes, "Oh my God, it's the car from the movie with Miley Cyrus." And I'm like, Lindsay Lohan?
Lohan, and that's the
And like-
crap one.
And that's there's several worse ones.
oh yeah, the
I balanced these wheels, so I had to get a Porsche wheel adapter. Yeah. To put it on the tire machine, or the wheel balancer. And all 4 wheels, it took a combined 2 pounds of wheel weights. Yeah. Which, you know, adds quite a bit to an already heavy rolling assembly with steelies that you're stopping every time. Yeah. So it's kind of hairy, but the highway ride's a hair smoother. Oh, you should see the faces people make when they're getting passed on the highway by Herbie the Love Bug doing like 90 miles I'm sorry, on a closed course, doing the speed limit. It is good fun though.
So that computer, the rev limiter just works like any other car. You just stay in it until it tells you nope, and then you shift.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. So that makes it easier. I'm not going to worry about floating valves or doing anything.
I mean, it is a stock valve train, so that's where me and Kit place the limiter.
Yeah.
Because it feels like it still has more to give, but I don't want to push that valve train anymore. The crank itself is forged, so that's what lets us spin it up a bit faster. Right now, that vibration you're feeling is some of the road and some of the wheels are warped. They're not the Volkswagen wide 5s are not very rigid. And these are 5.5 inches wide.
Yeah.
So they're even less rigid, and you're putting more stress through them. So I threw the more out of round ones on the back.
This thing, like even in 4th gear, it builds speed slowly.
Yeah. You could toss
It's
it
crazy
in
that
third.
like the top speed of this and the top speed of the Galaxy is pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
This is a 1.6. That's a 5.8. And they're from the exact same year.
I mean, granted, you have to be wringing out this little motor for several minutes to get it to, out that far. Because after like 75, there's a real power drop off. You hit that aerodynamic wall. This car is shaped like, although it looks smooth,
Yeah.
a drag coefficient of like 4.6 or something, I think. So, don't corner too quick. Okay, I thought you were going for it. A little further. There you go. Got it.
That no lockout is.
Yeah, I don't quite know what the issue with that is. I did the shifter bushings here. I still have to do them. I did check them. They're fine. And it's tight up where it goes into that pass-through for the trans under the rear seat. Easy. There you go.
Yeah, you're right. You gotta build. You gotta keep your momentum up.
Yeah, and you really don't want to upset the balance in this car, cornering heavily. Ring axle, you could roll it. I have a camber compensator in this, done by the previous owner. So that is what allows me to run this at autocross. However, on wide tires, I'm still a little shaky on it. I pump them up a bit so they'll slip before they really grab and roll them. And you really got to dance with this car to figure out what he wants to do.
I am thankful for the shoulder belt. Did it come with shoulder belts? No. Yeah. Did it come with belts in 63?
That's a great question.
Okay.
I think it may have been an option.
I know the belts in my Galaxy were added at some point in the car's history. It did not come with a convertible with no seat belts.
Yeah. Fine.
Don't crash.
Pretty much. That's all that's going through my head whenever I'm out on public roads.
Don't die.
There's people taking pictures of me. There have been days where I'm like exhausted coming home from work.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting at a light and I look up at my rear view.
Yeah.
And 3 phone cameras are up in 3 different cars.
Nice.
And I'm like, oh right.
Oh right, yeah. Preaching to the choir with the Galaxy.
Yeah.
It's probably not as much because, well, okay, at video game conventions and like furry conventions, of course they know what Crazy Taxi is.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, like every time I go to get gas, 3 or 4 people are talking to me.
Freaking. Hold on, second. That's
more.
probably 4th again. I'm
It's just a touch over from where it's grindy. I'm sure I'm gonna have angry people in the comments like, did you know it's because of blah, 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 blah.
There's second.
There you go. You get the hang of it after a while. I did that the first day with this car too. What the hell? And after doing the trans mounts, it sort of recentered everything back where it wanted to be.
Damn it! I love that truck.
A good truck. A truck. Brother.